Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's really well. Thanks for joining us today for this exciting webinar, Raising Your Startup's First Money. I'm Otto from Hyper, and pumped to have you all here and take you through my thoughts around exactly that, raising your startup's first money, and little nuggets of information and experience that I've learned and seen over the past 2 years of doing this and working within this industry. Super excited to have everyone here. I'll just give it a couple more minutes just to make sure that we've got everyone on, and then we'll kick into it. Appreciate it's everyone's lunch. You might be sitting in a cafe, you might be at work on your phone or whatever. So we won't keep it too long. I'll keep it short and snappy, informative. And then if you've got any questions throughout, pop them in the chat, and if we've got time at the end, I'll answer some. Otherwise, I can answer them after once we connect on LinkedIn. Pop me over an email, whatever. So we'll just give it one more minute, and then we'll jump into it. Okay, beautiful. I think we're getting there. Okay, awesome. Yeah, perfect. Let's crack into it. We like to keep things nice and on time here at Hyper. So off we go. So for those who just joined, I'm Otto. I'm a commercial strategist here at Hyper. And super excited to have you all here for this webinar on raising your startup's first money. We'll keep this under 30 minutes. I'd appreciate it's everyone's lunchtime. You're from work and things like that. So who are Hyper? So at Hyper, we're a startup studio, okay? And we support founders right from idea all the way through to launch. So not just a design and developer, but also responsible for that commercial and investment support. So getting founders into a position where they can raise, and then supporting them through that journey to then be able to use that money to go all the way through to development. We've been doing this for 8 years now. Head offices, Melbourne, Sydney, and London. Not sure if you can tell by my accent, but I'm actually from the London office, but I'm now in the Sydney office. So I was working for Hyper for the last over a year and a half in the London office, and moved out to the Sydney office. So in my opinion, finally made myself over to the better side of the world, which is great. But in Hyper's 8 years of doing this, we've helped launch over 900 startups, helped raise over 300 million for our founders, worked on some super exciting projects, which I'll share a couple of them throughout this process, throughout this webinar, but also be more than happy for those who aren't across them to share them after. Just reach out to me on Apollo. I'll share my details at the end as well. So importantly, today's webinar, raising your startup's first money. So this is the breakdown of it. So firstly, we're going through understanding your funding needs, bootstrapping strategies, family and friends, angel investors, crowdfunding, venture capital, government grants, validation, due diligence, and getting your outreach right. Okay. But, personally, I hope by the end of this that you'll understand the different options out there when you have to raise, and understand exactly where you are in your startup journey and how to then make a plan from there about how to go and execute your raise for your business. I wanted to put this webinar on because I appreciate it. There's a lot of different options, and just, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So just understanding which option is the best for you and your business, and what aligns with, what you're doing and where you want to go with it, just always helps founders when, approaching a raise, which is exciting. So firstly, understanding your funding needs. So before embarking on your fundraising journey, it's crucial to have a really clear understanding of your funding needs, okay? How much do you need? How much is the build going to be? Marketing, legals. It is always on a case-by-case basis, per founder, per business, per idea. But, talking to a startup advisor, an expert, someone who's been through a raise before, will really allow you to shed some light on these points, okay? I'm always under the personal impression that founders should, if they're going through a raise, they should raise just enough that's needed to get them into the market. And then once the product's out there and they've got revenue, they've got traction, then they can do another round after to really scale from there. The reason why I like doing that is because it protects founders' equity. In my personal opinion, it's about doing this is staying in the driving seat, and retaining as much of that equity as possible. The whole point of doing this is this is your baby, this is your passion, this is a problem that you are really, really passionate about. So protecting that equity and making sure you stay in the driving seat is super important. So factors to consider your business model, target market, product development timeline when assessing your funding needs. So, there's going to be different funding costs for different ideas. For example, AI, crypto, blockchain is going to be more expensive, okay, just because developers are more finite. So just understanding, more about the idea, how it's going to work from a technical perspective, will give you a much better idea of how much that initial raise is going to be. Is it something you can bootstrap? Is it something you need to reach out to? So yeah, again, speaking to an expert, someone who understands this, has been through this before, will just allow you to be better equipped to do this. It's also important at this stage to understand your motivations, as I touched on earlier, to undertaking this business and its launch, because it may be able to shed light on the strategy that you're going to go around. So are you motivated by money, lifestyle, high purpose, and what's the end game? What's the point of doing this? Is it to build an empire? Is it to sell your business? Or is it to build it up for your family? So just understanding these is just going to give you a better sort of idea of where you want to go with this. Okay. So secondly, bootstrapping strategies. Okay. Bootstrapping is a valuable strategy for funding your startup using your own resources and creativity. Okay. There are various bootstrapping strategies that founders can employ. So one is to leverage personal savings and invest them directly into your business, or consider finding a co-founder. Okay. Who can contribute financially, thus spreading the financial burden. With a co-founder, it's not just about the financial burden as well, though, because they'll also be splitting the work with you, which is great. So, ideally, you want someone who can, add to your assets and the way they work, and then you can focus on what you're good at, they focus on what they're good at, and as long as you have aligned values and the vision of the business, and there's conflicting ideas but not conflicting personalities. That's a good thing. Okay, so always consider a co-founder, because you can then split that financial burden as well. Alternatively, working part-time to support the startup while you build up from there. Advantages of doing so: you maintain control and independence over your business decisions. You develop resourcefulness and efficiency by learning to do more with less, and also demonstrate proof of concept and traction before then seeking external funding. Which is awesome. There can sometimes be potential limitations, such as slower growth or limited access to resources, but this, as I mentioned, will be on a case-by-case basis. So weigh up the options and the situation you're in, and that will be able to understand what's best for you moving forward. So I just want to touch on a little story, which I personally love. So Calendly, for those who haven't heard of it, it's an automatic booking app which people can book meetings and it goes straight into your diary. So instead of having to do it yourself, it just automatically does it, thus saving a lot of time. I personally use it, love it. So in 2013, Otto, a former EMC salesperson, had enough of the headache that scheduling sales calls had become. He was a man on a mission, and he knew he had to take matters into his own hands. So he bootstrapped his startup using his own savings and a small business loan while working at Atlanta Tech Village. Calendly bootstrapped. He hired a developer instead of selling equity for cheap to get seed funding. In turn, what this meant is he kept a huge percentage of his company at an early stage by taking it to a point where he could then raise post-launch. He also played smart and succeeded in rubbing it off in the faces of Silicon Valley VCs, which turned out to be a great move. So Calendly therefore took off like a rocket. And he secured seed investment of $550,000 in late 2013 once he had launched. And the icing on the cake, the software began as a freemium version for individual users before adding a premium version late in 2014. Fast forward to 2021, Calendly was making waves in the investment world. They raised a staggering $350 million from OpenView Venture Partners and Iconic, valuing the company at a reported $3 billion. Which is awesome. So it's always cool to look at other people's stories, how they did it, and take sort of notes and see what you can apply learnings to what you're doing here in your journey. So then we got family and friends. Okay, so this is another option for early stage funding from family and friends. The big importance I want to stress here is, the importance for clear agreements and maintaining professionalism. Ensure you've got the legal documents, clear terms of investment in place, including the repayment expectation, potential equity or ownership structure. Okay. Communicate openly with your family and friends, and the financial aspects to preserve personal relationships. If not, there are some sort of risks, strained relationships. But as long as you keep that communication and expectations open and super transparent, everything should be okay. Always seek legal guidance as well when going around this. And when I say family and friends, we're not just talking about directly your best mates, your family who you grew up with. We're talking about that boss who you used to work for, who, just exited his business. You're really utilizing his network. So really thinking outside of the box and understanding where you can get intros to people who will know of you. But, we're not talking, going directly to the closest around you, but thinking outside the box and really exhausting all of those options and going around there because, you never know. And I'll come on to the different arrangements that you can go from here if it's something that you're going to do. Some family and friends might turn around and be like, yes, you can have X amount of capital. We'll sort it at a later date because you have that relationship and you have that trust with them. Others might be like, yeah, I want to invest, but I want some sort of agreement in place. So I'll touch on those later. But yeah, that's a little into family and friends. And then we've got angel investors. Okay, so angel investors can be a valuable source of funding, mentorship, industry connections for early stage startups. Essentially, who are angel investors? They're wealthy individuals who invest his or her own money into a company, usually a startup that's in the early stages of development. There's big incentives for them to get in early because the company takes off. That smaller investment can then turn into something quite fruitful. So there's different types of angel investors, individual angel investors who invest their personal funds into startups, angel groups or networks where multiple angels join together to invest in startups, and then angel syndicates or a lead investor, a lead angel, which will often involve a lead investor who brings in a smaller group of investors to participate into the investment. So those are typically the different types. To attract angel investors, it's essential to build relationships. It's all relationship building, just like with partnerships, just like with building out a team, and network within the startup ecosystem. Okay. Offer advice on pitching to angels. Include, showcase compelling business idea, address the market opportunity, highlight your team's expertise, and demonstrate your clear path to profitability. Hence why, that foundation of really understanding the business and the direction forward is so important. So also a couple of things to note with angels, align with their portfolios, okay? Different angels will be looking for different investments in different industries and areas. So, who have they previously invested with? What were the ticket sizes? When was the last investment? So understanding all of these things is going to give you a much better idea of, okay, are they right for me? Do they align with my portfolio, their portfolio? Because that's what it's all about, finding investors who invest into the industry that you're in. Because they'll have expertise. Yes, they'll have cash, but expertise as well. They may be able to introduce you or open that door, which is what it's all about, in my opinion. Yes, cash is great if it's going to mean you can get your business out there into the market. But if you can get an investor on board who can really open up that huge partnership, which is in turn going to give you 10,000 potential users, that could be just as valuable as $100,000. So yeah, just make sure that you're aligning with their portfolios and also stand out from the crowd. Angel investors will be getting approached a lot. Okay, they'll see a lot of pitch decks. They'll get a lot of cold outreach messages. So how can you stand out from the crowd? Be personable, be unique. Really tell your story. That's sort of the main thing. And if you can get a warm intro, brilliant. But if you can't, just really be personal and be unique. And if you get in a meeting with them and they say no, this is something I'll also touch on later. Get them onto your investor update. Investor updates, in my opinion, are great for updating the investors who have already invested. Monthly updates, which is super key for that transparency and communication, but also it's a great tool and tactic for the wider network. So people who might be interested, but they didn't invest at that time, or people you want to invest, for just keeping them updated, creating that FOMO, creating that traction behind the idea, and exactly, what you're doing, which is awesome. Then there's crowdfunding, okay? So crowdfunding has emerged as a popular fundraising method for startups, enabling you to raise capital from a large number of individuals through online platforms, okay? There's two main types of crowdfunding. So reward-based crowdfunding, where backers receive non-financial rewards or pre-purchase products or services, or equity crowdfunding, where investors will receive equity or shares in that company. Okay, there's quite a few benefits to crowdfunding. So initially, it validates your product or idea by really gauging the interest and generating pre-revenue sales. Those are going to be your first customers, essentially. Also, it builds a community of early adopters and brand advocates, which is awesome, and really leverages social media and online networks to create a buzz around your campaign. So, to run a successful campaign, craft a compelling story that resonates with your target audience, set clear and achievable funding goals, and communicate how the funds will be utilized, and then engage with your backers and provide regular updates throughout the campaign. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you're going to do a crowdfunding campaign, that you're ready, you have that outreach. Yes, the site that you'll be on will potentially push it for you, but you want to go wider than that, because usually it's a set time frame. So you have a set time frame to raise the amount needed. So make sure that you've got a plan in place for that, to really market it and get it out there. Do note that sometimes not all of them, but some crowdfunding platforms will require you to have raised a percentage of the raise that you're going to do. So note that as well. An example here, so Bundle, which is an awesome company that we went through the Hyper Accelerate program, who have actually now launched. So essentially, they're a unique life stage destination that makes it easier for parents and families to access thousands of independent kids and baby brands all in one place. They ran a successful campaign last year, raised over 200,000 from it, and have since launched, which is awesome to see. So if anyone wants, I can send you the site that they did it on, and the site that they have now that they're launched. It's an awesome business. So yeah, that's a little bit about crowdfunding. And then we've got VCs, venture capital. Okay. So venture capital fuel the growth of high potential startups. VCs invest in early stage or high growth startups in exchange for equity. So what do they look for? Essentially, VCs look for large market opportunities with high growth potential. They love differentiated and scalable business models or innovative technology, and really love a strong management team with relevant industry experience. And the big buzzword, traction. They love traction, especially if it's early stage. Okay, so early stage, pre-revenue, pre-launch. What's going to really get them to get them excited and to speak with you is that traction, the ability to execute, which is going to fall onto the team, and then the MOUs and the letters of intent signed. Okay, so VCs typically they'll be looking for craft and concise, compelling pitch deck that captures the essence of your business. Lots of market research prepared, showcasing the market opportunity. And really with VCs, you want to leverage your network, seek warm introductions to these venture capitalists. Okay, so last week we had a coffee event with our good friend Scatala Ventures, who came into our office, and we just spoke about the market, what are things going on at the moment, what they're looking for, and Claire Bristow, she really sort of nailed down on the MOUs and the team. So, if you're B2C, getting out there and getting thousands of MOUs, letters of intent signed, which is, an agreement, not legally binding, but it just means that, upon the launch of the business, the company that you're speaking to is really keen to be part of it, wants to be part of the platform. So getting those signed, if it's B2B, getting an awesome enterprise MOU, a letter of intent signed, which then in turn unlocks their database or whatever they can offer you. So really honing down on those, because also it shows the team's ability to execute, which is what it's all about. They're investing into you, they're investing into the people behind it, because ultimately you're the ones who are going to drive this to success. So just really focusing on the MOUs, traction, partnerships, and that team as well. Okay, so the team to support you. So thinking about the team from all angles, marketing, sales, tech, but then also not just that, but the advisory and chairman side of things. So people who have done this before, built businesses in the relevant industry, exited them. So, that you can turn to when you have those high level problems and things that you need. You can pick up the phone and you can call them and hear him or her and, get that advice that you need. So really focusing on traction and team. But yeah, that's a bit about VCs. And then we've also got government grants and R&D. So A little extra cash in the pocket never goes astray when you're in the early stages of building your business. The process can be a little lengthy and tedious when it comes to government grants, but if your application is successful, it can give your startup the real leg up that's needed. So this is why with grants, it's key to make sure that you have everything you need. So make sure that you're at the right readiness before applying. And I'd also advise in engaging with an expert or a partner who can assist you in that, or someone who's done it before. Okay, there's certain things different grants want to see, different stages. So making sure you've got that all, you apply in the right process and the right way is just going to ensure that the application time and the success rate is as high as possible. So nationally in Australia, just to run you by a few, we've got growth grants, we've got the Accelerating Commercialization Grant, the CSIRO Kickstart Grant, and then there's also R&D incentives. So research and development, you can claim back on lots of the work done, up to 43.5%. For the R&D, we've got partners at Hyper, but yeah, I definitely advise in engaging in a partner. It's going to be pretty complicated to do yourself. So you want someone who is an expert and really understands how to do the process, but streamline it importantly. And then obviously per state, New South Wales, there's the MVP Ventures Grant. Queensland, you've got Ignite Ideas Fund, backing female founders program, and then Western Australia Innovation Booster Grant. So those are just a little on the opportunities that the government really have to offer here. But the R&D is obviously really exciting as well, because sometimes development, obviously on a case-by-case basis, idea can be expensive. So if you can claim back up to 43.5% and then put that money into the growth of the business, that's pretty cool. So why valuation is essential? Otherwise, you've got options such as safe notes. So I provided an example there. So have a little read of that. But essentially, valuation is key. Okay, raising without valuation, unless really, really desperate, is not a good idea, because you're gonna more often than not end up giving away much more equity than that cash is actually worth. Okay, so the example there goes over, for example, in the early stages, if you gave away 10% of the business for $20,000, but then you were to then go and really work on the business, build out that product, the prototype, really get some validation, build out the team, get some traction, tie it all together with everything you need to cap table shareholders agreements, that data room, and now you're valued at 200,000. All of a sudden, that 10% is worth $200,000. So 2 million valuation, $200,000, which is a lot more than what you originally gave it away for. So that's why coming to evaluation, yes, as a pre-revenue business can sometimes be complicated. At Hyper, we use the Berkus method, which is a very respected pre-revenue method. And essentially what it does is it rates the startup based on 5 factors. So the sound idea, the prototype and the validation, management team, strategic relationships, and initial sales and traction. Okay, so it rates them all on a scale of 1 to 10, which then puts it from 0 to 250,000, and you come up with a valuation. You'll do this with your team, experts, people that you're working with to justify it, but that's going to be your justification behind the validation, the valuation. So making sure you can justify it is so important, because you will get asked about it. They'll be like, okay, how did you get to that number? And being able to clearly and concisely articulate how you got to it is super, super important, and going to really buy the confidence of investors and partners and team members that you do speak to. So that's super important. Essentially, I'm not trying to say that everyone's going to be able to protect their equity as much as possible, but getting a valuation as high as possible in an age where there's as much investment. The investment will happen, but I just want all founders to be conscious of making sure that they're in a strong position and they're protecting their equity and they get their valuation as high as possible and do the work needed, so that when they're in the position to then raise, they can just make the best informed decision for themselves and the business, instead of raising at a super early stage and giving a huge amount of equity away, which ultimately means, if the business then launches in 2-3 years' time, you might not even be the majority shareholder. You might have a mere sort of 20-30% in the business, which isn't what it's about. Otherwise, there's options such as safe notes. So safe notes stands for Simple Agreement for Future Equity. Okay, and it was invented by Y Combinator in 2013 to give specifically early stage startups an alternative way of raising funds. Basically, what it is, it's a flexible agreement between an investor and a startup. In exchange for upfront money, the investor gains a contractual right to convert the amount into shares when they get a valuation and they're at that stage. The exchange takes place when the pre-agreed trigger event occurs. Okay, so that might be getting to a valuation, doing their first raise. So why would early stage startups use safe notes? They're at pre-valuation. They don't have the time or resources required for a standard equity raise. And bridging rounds between equity raising rounds is key. And gaining early traction, and your startup's valuation could significantly rise in the short term. So safe notes are just a lot less complicated than other options out there. Standard, they're sort of 4 to 6 pages long. Obviously, always engage with a legal firm for this or a legal partner. But it's just a good way that pre-revenue businesses can raise at the ideal or very early stages if they don't have a valuation, to ensure that they're not giving away too much equity. So due diligence and making sure you're investor ready. So, the final steps in the fundraising process include signing investment agreements, transferring the funds. Understanding the terms and conditions and maintaining open communication with investors will reduce the stress and being able to provide regular updates to build long-term relationships. So what does it look like to be investor ready? So if you're at a pre-revenue, pre-launch stage, you're going to want to have a data room. Okay, the data room is the easiest way to reach out to an investor and show them exactly where you're at in the best and easiest format. Okay, so the data room will typically include the prototype, which has been validated, pitch deck with all your traction and team to date, cap table, 3-year financial forecast, shareholder agreements, and all the legal and financial sorted, all tied together in a simple data room. So whether it's a Google Drive folder that you can actually just send over really easily. Using this to sit at evaluation, so when you raise, you know how much equity to give away for the cash. Also get an investor update together. Create, that monthly newsletter for this when you're sending this out. So anyone you send it to, get their email in that monthly update. It really does pay off. I've seen so many founders do it, and it just has such positive effects for keeping those investors who have invested updated, but also creating that FOMO for those that haven't. It's a little bit about that. And then getting your outreach right. So once we have everything we need, getting your outreach to investors is really important. So things to consider are with angels and VCs, they get pitched the whole time. So how can you stand out from the crowd? Okay, be personal, be unique, with big questions of NDAs. So my personal opinion is NDAs are great. But, in terms of if an investor and a VC is getting reached out to a lot, NDA is just another barrier to entry. Okay, so start small, build up from there, raise your first 100,000. Some that'll be really easy, some won't. So start with $2,000-$3,000 checks and go from there. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Oh, apologies about that. Just had to change rooms quickly. But with NDAs can just be another sort of barrier to entry when speaking to investors. Obviously, if you don't trust them, don't send too much, but you're trying to build a relationship here, and starting off by essentially saying, I don't trust you, sign this, isn't the best place to start. So ditch the NDAs. But when it comes to raising, start small and build up from there. So start with, the $2,000-$3,000 checks, build momentum, just like with traction on the partnership, start small and build up from there. That's sort of the best ways to do it. And when reaching out, use tools such as Lemlist. Lemlist is a great tool to do email campaigns that you can collate lists of investors, and they'll save you so much time as a founder. You've obviously already got loads of things to do. A little investor story time. So feel free to scan that QR code. That will take you through to Amble, and you can download their app, have a play around with it. Do note that it's just in London at the moment. They are expanding soon, but essentially 2001, Amble, we started working with them. and they came through the Accelerate program. They were formerly called Spontable, and I remember being in their focus group with their prototype, which was a long time ago, and seeing where they've come from there is great. But essentially what they did, they went through the Accelerate program, and then they were sitting in evaluation, held the focus group, and then they did their round shortly after, where they raised £550,000. But the reason why they raised this was because of the work they did prior. So the two founders are awesome. So Bobby and Aaron and Jed, and they went out there after work on the streets of London, going to all these bars, events, venues, and raised 1,400 partnerships, which was super cool. And, because they did that, they showed their ability to execute. They showed that there was a lot of interest and traction behind the idea. So, they really managed to raise that money. They did get a lead investor who opened up his network. But, they did the hard work and it really did pay off. They then did another round where they raised 1.2 million a couple of months later. And then fast forward to now, they've now got 30,000 users on the app and the platform, loads of all the best of the venues in London, which is great, such as Hackathon, Otto. And the Series A round is coming soon for a further scale. Moral of the story is get out to speak to your customers and partners, get letters of intent signed and MOUs, and show your ability to execute and the traction and belief behind the idea to then go from there. So key takeaways that I hope that you've taken away from this: understand why you need funding, breakdown of the plan. Secondly, make sure you're ready for funding. Okay, so you've got that data room together with your prototype, cap table, pitch deck, legals, financials, importantly, evaluation, so you can protect your equity, or you at least know how much equity you're giving away for how much cash. 3, start small and build up from there. It's all a momentum game. 4th, remember, it's all relationship building. And 5th, have a plan for that investment once it hits the bank. Do you have a development partner? Is there a plan for the marketing and the go-to-market? So just make sure that we know what we're going to be doing with it. So that's the webinar. I hope everyone found it super interesting. Just want to leave you with a little quote, which I think is quite suitable. So don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once. So be persistent, stay buoyant, keep at it. But if you want to have a further chat, feel free to scan the QR code. That's my LinkedIn, connect there, or pop me through an email. It has hit 1:30 now. So if anyone does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and then I'll be able to send it out after, answer them on Apollo. But I hope everyone found that super interesting. I'll leave that up for a moment, so if you do want to reach out and connect. Otherwise, thanks everyone.